Do I have any nominations for the Chairman of the Council of the Isles of Scilly?
I would like to propose Councillor Robert Francis.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a seconder for that proposal?
I'd like to second that.
Thank you.
We have had a very difficult and challenging year. However, I believe we are now out the other side and we can move our council forward in a positive manner. I remain committed, along with our Vice Chair, Committee Chairman and lead members, to help our officers deliver on our corporate plan and the work plan for the year 2019-2020. I am extremely pleased that we found and appointed our interim Chief Executive Officer, Mark Bowden. There is a promising can-do approach and an excellent working environment developing that is inspiring and gratifying. We are currently finalising plans for the management of our council and its head of paid service for the foreseeable future. I am quite sure that we will now make good headway this year with our outstanding issues, not least our ongoing negotiations around funding with ministers, which is very important prior to their respective visits this summer, with housing, transport, and our very big health and social care integration project that is ahead of us. A detailed programme is now being developed, which will culminate in a series of workshops, including one on communications throughout our organisation, which we've been waiting to do for some time. These will occur over the next 6 weeks, where we will debate and set clearly defined objectives with targets and performance measurement. Thank you. Yeah. I now state the declaration of acceptance of office. I, Robert Dennis Francis, having been elected to the office of Chairman of the Council of the Isles of Scilly, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our next item on the agenda is the election of Vice Chairman. Do I have any nominations, please, for the position of Vice Chairman of the Council? Councillor Guy.
I'd like to propose Councillor Fran Grottick, please.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Adrian Davis. Do I have any other nominations? All those in favour of Councillor Frank Grottick, would you show, please? Yeah, that's a majority. Carried. Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda, I'd like to welcome Councillor Grottick to her chair, then, please. Yeah.
Thank you for re-electing me to this post. I shall continue to do my best. I will now read the declaration of office. I, Frances Marion Grottick, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of the Council of the Isles of Scilly, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda is declarations of interest, please. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on item 21, just to note I'm an advisory board member of the community venture, but I still intend to take part in the discussion. And item 24, I'm Chairman of Transition City, so I will leave the room for that item.
Thank you. Councillor Dorian Smith.
Item 16, Chairman, planning application for NORAD of pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Councillor Nellams.
The same item, Chairman. Item 16, the planning application as an employee of Tresco Estate.
Thank you.
My apologies, Chairman. Due to staff illness, they've not been prepared yet.
But they will be for the next meeting.
Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda, Chairman's announcements. I have none. Item 6, questions under Standing Order 14. I have none. Item 7, to consider reports from committees, including receipt of minutes. We have none. Item 8 on the agenda, to consider motions in standing order in accordance with Standing Order 12. We have none. Item 9 on the agenda, members' updates. We have one update from Councillor Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I've only just got a couple of items which are in addition to the notes I've provided, but members can, of course, ask me queries about what I have written down. I'm attending a workshop in Cornwall tomorrow, weather permitting, to look at a joint Cornwall and Isles of Scilly health and wellbeing strategy. I'd also like to remind members it's currently National Mental Health Awareness Week. And as we move forward with the sort of plans and strategies in the coming year, I think it's very important we bear mental health at the forefront of those decisions we take. And I'm also optimistic that there should be some progress on the Garrison Play Park within the coming weeks and months. Officers behind the scenes have been working hard to get some quotes in place. I've got a meeting with Mr. Hogan when I return from holiday in a couple of weeks. He's been busy fundraising as well and can use the quotes towards some of the efforts he's been making. So as I said, I'm optimistic we'll see some positive progress because it's something which members of the community frequently stop and ask me about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Sims.
I didn't think it's worth a written update, but regarding water figures, they've been quite heartening so far this year. We saved on the same period last year, and hopefully people continue to do it. Then we can have, hopefully again, a lovely long hot summer and not worry too much about water this year. So everybody's doing very well so far.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on. There are no, item 10, there are no urgent items. Before I mention item 11, I would state that agenda items 22 and agenda item 23 are to be deferred, and agenda item 21 will be moved to part 3. I'd now like to take agenda item 11, confirmation of terms of reference of council bodies 1920, report of officer of the Democratic Services.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got nothing further to add to the report. It should be noted, though, that the DPP shall be looking at the terms of reference of the council bodies throughout spring and summer, hopefully bringing something back to council around that time, July or September, bearing in mind that we have no council in August.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford.
I'd like to turn to page 2, paragraph 5. Where it says members are asked to confirm both the change in membership number to 8 and whether the quorum of this committee should be changed from 5 to 4. This is the scrutiny committee. So they're wanting clarification on that. And paragraph 7, members are therefore asked to confirm whether or not to restore the exclusion regarding the chairman and vice chairman's counsel in support of the principle of independence of the scrutiny committee. I don't know whether our monitoring officer would like to comment on that.
A matter for members, Chairman.
So I think that needs clarification or confirming when we do the recommendations.
Okay.
So I think the recommendation may have to be altered at the beginning to say subject to any changes agreed at this meeting.
Sorry. Now, yeah. So can we have any further comment, please, on paragraph 5? What's the view of members? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've been thinking about this and talking with Chairman of Scrutiny on this matter. My opinion would be, I think that the change from 9 members to 8 would be fine. We have struggled to have a full scrutiny committee. So if those numbers came down and the quorum as well, that would make sense in terms of kind of working arrangement. In terms of whether the chair and vice chair should or shouldn't stand on scrutiny, my opinion in terms of the role, very much the role, not the person, is that I think it would give independence to the scrutiny committee not to have chair and vice chair. Vice chair, of course, is also lead member for finance. So my proposal would be to support Councillor Mumford in that the scrutiny committee retain independence by not having chair and vice chair standing on it.
Thank you. Councillor Sims.
I concur with those comments, and I think we do need to make the decision of the numbers on the committee tonight, because this is the night we appoint the members of that committee. Deferring it would be barking.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
I would second Councillor Smith's proposals.
Thank you. All those in favour of the proposal, please?
Sorry. Did Councillor Smith 4, going to 4? Under item 5. Did he talk about that? He talked about that. So forgive me, but for the purpose of the minutes, I do apologise. Does the motion include a statement as to whether it's 5 or 4 quorum under paragraph 5?
That we have 8 members and the quorum would go from 5 to 4.
So the motion is to approve the terms of reference and specify that under paragraph 5, the quorum is 4, and to specify that under 7, the chair and vice chair be not members of scrutiny. Thank you. Thank you.
So I have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour, please? It's unanimous. Thank you. I would make one comment from the chair, and that is that when we actually look at the scrutiny committee, in order to help whoever is chair of scrutiny, I think it would be really helpful if the members of scrutiny actually are able to make the scrutiny meetings as far as possible. Obviously it's been a very difficult time for our chair of scrutiny last year, and so if you are thinking of putting yourself forward for scrutiny, please make sure you can attend as much as possible. Thank you very much. So with that, our recommendation is that members approve the terms of reference as shown in the appendix to the report. So we're done. Thank you. Item 12 on our agenda is a confirmation of the scheme of delegation, again from Andy Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. Very much the same as the last report, and as much as the DPP are scheduled to look at this again this year, not again, but to look at it this year. So as you have in front of you was presented to you this time last year. So there are no changes to the scheme of delegation compared with last year at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
I propose the recommendation.
Councillor Sims seconding. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 13 on the agenda is the confirmation of standing orders. Again with you, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There have been amendments to these standing orders, and they were made through the Democratic Processes Panel Working Group, and they are what is presented to you now. Having just amended your terms of reference as well, bear in mind that that will now impact on standing orders, so that the terms of reference for the committees will be inserted into standing orders as Annex 2 to 6, I believe. So please do consider the changes that the working group have put in the report that I've written for them.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I was a member of the working group. I think we had some very good discussion. I think we went through standing orders very thoroughly. So subject to the changes, as Andy just alluded to, I would support the recommendation. I think it's a good amendments to standing orders.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford, second that. Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. So item 14 is next on our agenda, internal appointments. Again with you, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So you've got 6 recommendations in front of you. Many of them are as we have done previously. For example, the licensing committee and how that is comprised of everyone except the chairman of council in order for us to stay within the legislated numbers of 10 to 15. The 8 councillors to scrutiny committee it's almost like I could see into the future that you were going to agree to go from 9 to 8. We still do have to do the appointments to the homelessness review panel as much as that doesn't meet often, which is a good thing. And again, that all members be appointed to the DPP and to the corporate parenting panel and to the local plan working group should that need to meet again in this year. And then again at 6 is the question of lead member roles and who you would like to put in which positions.
Thank you. So I think recommendation 1 is quite straightforward. So if we take, sorry, Councillor
just wanted-
Sims.
I agree, it's straightforward. I just wanted to ask for clarification from the monitoring officer. Previously, we have avoided having members who hold liquor licenses on the licensing panel. I don't mind one way or the other because I don't have one, but I just wanted to get clarification on that.
There's no legal impediment to people who have liquor licenses being on the licensing committee. But if they are, and there are liquor licensing applications, then it is considered good practice for them not to take part because, of course, there's the issue of competition. So it depends on how people regard the next year and whether or not there are likely to be sufficient numbers of liquor licenses.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Will debar
I'm
them
very
from
happy
effective
to be left to
membership of the
members'
committee.
discretion then. Okay.
Thank you. So I'd like to move on to recommendation 2. Or do we need to get a vote on? Yeah.
Perhaps what we might do now, I'll take item 1 as agreed, is if we go through a process of nominating and seconding. In terms of item 2, recommendation 2, if we go through the process of nominating and seconding and seeing if we get to 8 names or more than 8 names.
So could I have first recommendation, please, for scrutiny?
Well, I'll nominate Councillor Smith.
Seconder?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus. Councillor Legg?
I'll nominate Councillor Marcus.
Thank you.
I'll second that and I'll nominate Councillor Mumford.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick?
I propose Councillor Mumford.
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
I'll propose Councillor Legg.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Sims?
I'll propose Councillor Sims.
And I'll second Councillor Sims.
Okay. Do I have a seconder, please, for Councillor Sims?
Yes.
Councillor Mumford, thank you.
But I propose Councillor Watt.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Yeah, we need 2 more, please. Councillor Mumford?
Councillor Levins.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Who's that last
What?
one?
Councillor Nellams.
You could if you wanted to leave one vacant, but you don't, because you've got an election coming.
Yeah. There is one point, you can leave one vacant if you wish, because there is an election coming.
Could I ask Councillor Robert Smith if he wishes to be? I might propose Councillor.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Sims.
Who was that last one?
All the nominees are willing to accept.
Yes. Can we please confirm, therefore, that Councillor Smith, Marcus, Mumford, Legg, Sims, Watt, Nellams and Dorian Smith are happy to serve on the scrutiny committee? Thank you. Those in favour, please, of those nominations? Thank you. That's unanimous. So we move on to the third recommendation to nominate 3 councillors for the IFCA. Councillor Watt?
Could I nominate Councillor Guy?
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Councillor Legg.
Could I nominate Councillor Watt?
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Legg.
Seconded.
Thank you. So we have 3 nominations, all seconded. Sorry? Are there any other nominations, please, for the IFCA? So can we take those nominations, please? All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. So I think our fourth recommendation here, that all members be appointed to the Democratic Processes Panel and to the Local Plan Working Group and to the Corporate Parenting Panel. It's quite straightforward unless anyone has any issues with that.
I haven't got an issue.
Sims?
I haven't got an issue with it, but it seems rather pointless having it there. Could it not just be made de facto in the future?
No. Okay. So could I please have a proposer for that recommendation?
Propose
Councillor Marcus and seconder Councillor Grottick. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. The fifth recommendation, that members appoint 6 councillors to the Homeless Review Panel for the ensuing year. So could we do similar, please, to that which we did with scrutiny? Councillor Grottick.
If you'll accept the nomination, I'd like to nominate Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Councillor Guy. have you got
Seconded.
your item? Thank you. Other nominations, please?
Nominate
Councillor Legg.
Councillor Mumford.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Guy. Any other nominations, please? Councillor Mumford. Thank you.
Second that.
Thank you. Councillor Guy.
Nominate Councillor Williams.
Thank you. We need 2 more. Unless again you want to wait.
I'll nominate Councillor Guy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep, if you wish. Right, so we're done there. Thank you. Had 5. Okay, pardon. Is everybody who's been nominated, that's Councillor Davis, Mumford, Marcus, Williams and Guy, all happy to accept? Thank you. Do you want to vote? Yeah, those in favour, please. It's unanimous. Thank you. So the 6th recommendation is our lead member roles. So could I please have a nomination for lead member for adults? Councillor Sims.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Marcus.
Thank you. Are there any other nomination for lead member for adults? In that case, all those in favour, please, of Councillor Marcus? It's unanimous. Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Davis for all the amazing work that he's done over the years while he's been lead member for adults. Been hugely appreciated. I know it's been a huge workload, Councillor Davis, and we would like to thank you very, very much indeed for your contribution. Thank you. The next lead member position is for the lead member for place. Councillor Guy.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Sims.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I'd second that.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations, please, for lead member for place? In that case, could you all show, please, in favour of Councillor Sims? It's unanimous. Thank you. Lead member for planning. Could I have a nomination for that, please? Councillor Mumford.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Marcus.
Thank you. Seconded. Any other nominations for lead member for planning, please? Okay. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next lead member is the lead member for Smart Islands. Councillor Mumford.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations, please, for lead member for Smart Islands? Then would you please all show? That's unanimous, thank you. Lead member for Children and Young People, Councillor Grottick.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford, seconded. Are there any other nominations, please, for lead member for Children? Then would you all please show in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Lead member for Finance and Resources is normally in the hands of our Vice Chair. Somebody like to make that nomination, please?
Yeah, I'd like to
Councillor
nominate
Smith.
Councillor Grottick.
Thank you. Councillor
Seconded.
Guy, seconded. Are there any other nominations for lead member for Finance? Then would you
Chairman,
all
can I,
please-
before we do that, can I just make sure that it's the role that you want to appoint that position to, or to the councillor? So is it, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I take it for the purpose of the minutes that this is nomination of Councillor Grottick, not the Vice Chair, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
It's an academic point.
And it was mentioned by our
Yes,
proposal.
it was.
Yes. So would you show, please, on that? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Chairman, one further point as well is the appendix 1 to that report. We have the general provisions for the lead members and the role profiles for the lead members. It might be helpful just to reaffirm those at this point as well, just to say that these are the profiles by which those lead members discharge their duties as such.
Yeah. Could I have a proposition, please, that someone to recommend that we keep the role profiles as they are? Councillor Smith?
Yes, Chairman, I would support that.
Thank you. Seconder, please, Councillor Sims.
Well, yes, I'll second it. I was going to make the point. I don't. The other lead member roles is different, but I do think the lead member for Finance and Resources. I quite strongly feel that should be tied to the role of Vice Chair of Council, and it doesn't make it, like you said, it's academic at the moment. But I do think we should possibly change terms of reference or standing orders to reflect that later on.
I'll take that away and look at that. Thank you.
Councillor Grottick.
Actually, if I could just say two things. Firstly, I tend to agree with that. For example, if we were lucky enough to have a chartered accountant in our midst, I certainly wouldn't stand against her or him. So I can take the point, but thank you for your support. I'd also like to say that Councillor Barclay regretted having to stand back from the Smart Islands role and just asked me to say that she would like to help and support Councillor Smith in any way that she can.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say thank Councillor Barclay for her work and obviously welcome the support.
Yeah. So all those in favour, please, for the last lead member for Finance. Thank you for Councillor Grottick. Thank you. That concludes our internal appointments. Yeah. So we'll move on to item 15, which is our external appointments. Again, in your hands, Andy, thank you. Pages 111 to 120.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I've come up with the list by which you need to appoint with. So in Appendix 1, I've made the list of all of your appointments that have been made over the past couple of years. So some still stand because they're 4-year appointments. Some are annual, so you need to reappoint. So at recommendation 1, I think I've listed those appointments that you need to reappoint to, although I think I've put in the Devon and Cornwall Police and Crime Panel, which is actually a 4-year appointment. So that actually doesn't need to be in that list. But council can obviously do as it wishes each year in terms of these appointments. And number 2, recommendation 2, sorry, we're talking about the independent persons appointment panel, which I was not present at. So I wonder if an officer may speak to that who was present to perhaps explain when we get to that part of the decision how that went. But yeah, please consider recommendations 1 and 2 in the report. And any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. With regard to recommendation 2 and the appointment of the independent person, myself, Councillor Mumford and Mr Bowden were part of the process. And Dr Lambert came across, in my opinion, extremely well. He had a shed load of skills which he could bring to the position. He demonstrated passion and commitment both to Scilly and to the mainland, and was able to talk about the balance he would have. He was clearly knowledgeable about Scilly and the role. He'd done a huge amount of homework, and I thought presented himself extremely well, discussing the sort of approach he would take to resolving some of the conflicts and issues which he might face in his role. So I would strongly urge members that he was an outstanding candidate, and it was a very enjoyable process in my opinion.
Thank you. So if we could go back to our list in recommendation 1, please, and start from the top. We have nomination, please, for the AONB partnership. I need 2 nominations, please. Councillor Mumford.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
Second that.
Second that. Thank you. Councillor Legg.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Nellums.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Grottick. Are there any other nominations, please, for the AONB partnership? Would all those show, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. The Local Nature Partnership. I have a nomination, please. Councillor Marcus.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Grottick. Are there any other nominations? Would you show, please? Thank you. It's unanimous. The National Association of AONBs. Councillor Grottick.
I'd like to propose Johan Hicks. He's previously been a councillor for many years, and he's served on this well for many years as well, and is, I believe, well respected in the role.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
I'd like to defer this item for the either City A and B to propose a person to go on that board, really. So someone, because it says in the narrative that there's limited accountability for the council and representation. So I think we need a little bit more thought rather than just putting the same person in again.
Thank you. Is there any further comment? Councillor Legg.
I would second the nomination of Johan Hicks.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm minded to support that as well, but I actually support Councillor Marcus's proposition purely because the relationship between the AONB partnership and the National Association rep has never been properly clarified. So we actually have an AONB partnership meeting on, I think, June the 11th. So I'd actually recommend bringing that back to June full council if the time permits, and then we could we take this vote again at the next full council? Would that be acceptable to members, please?
So, Chairman, we have a nomination, but we also have an amendment which is a request for deferral. So if you take the deferral first, that can best clarify whether we go.
Well, could I just check? I've minuted that there was a proposal and a seconding. I didn't hear a proposal to amend it. I heard comment, but not a proposal to amend it. So does anybody want to propose an amendment?
It was a proposal to defer the vote till next meeting.
And I was seconding that proposal.
Okay. So could you please signify your choice on that, please, whether you wish for a deferral? Would you show?
Sorry. If we defer, I'm not altogether sure what additional information we will have at the next meeting. That this is the issue I'd have, and then also, are people champing at the bit to do this? I mean, I don't mind reassessing it, but I have no issue whatsoever with Johan doing it. However, we could reassess the relationship and continue with Johan in place, which would possibly be easier. I don't know.
Councillor Grotty.
Sorry, but just for clarity's sake, Councillor Smith, you're asking to defer the decision. So what you're not saying is that you are not, because I find myself in a slightly embarrassing position of having asked Mr. Hicks if he'd be happy for his name to go forward, and he is. So you are not discounting my nomination per se. You are just asking to defer the discussion until the next meeting.
Yeah, that's correct. And just to sort of flesh out the point slightly, so the National Association rep should be a representative of the Isles of Scilly AONB. Now, as you probably know, the AONB is a partnership of organisations more than just the Council of the Isles of Scilly. So to my mind, this item has never really been properly clarified, so it'd be beneficial to take it to the next AONB partnership meeting, which I say is June the 11th from memory, where we can clarify that and then bring this nomination back to next full council.
Can I ask if you actually mentioned to, I believe you've spoken to Johan Hicks, did you actually mention that that was your intention?
I wasn't able to get hold of him today.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Nellams.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I fully support Jonathan's point. Having attended the meetings, I understand completely what he means by the fact that even though someone from the Isles of Scilly is attending, it's not really the council or the AONB member that's participating. So the voice just isn't as strong.
Okay, thank you. So can we please have a vote on the deferral? All those in favour of deferring? That's carried. Okay, we will defer this item. Thank you. The next one is the Cornwall Rural Community Council Board of Trustees. Could I have a nomination, please? Councillor Sims.
I don't know if anybody's spoken to Councillor Barclay, but I would be happy to propose her, but I'm not altogether sure she necessarily would like to do it at this point. So maybe somebody else could clarify a little.
Councillor Grotty.
I think the meetings are quite infrequent, so I feel happy to second that nomination for Councillor Barclay on the basis that she does hope to be back on her feet relatively quickly. Let's all hope that's correct.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations, please? Then would you please vote on Councillor Barclay for this position? Thank you. All those carried. So the next one is the Southwest Regional Flood and Coastline Committee, which is usually twinned with our lead member for place, Councillor Marcus.
I'll propose lead member for place.
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. The next one is the Devon and Cornwall Police and Crime Panel. Councillor Nellams was actually elected for 4 years, so I have confirmed with him that he's happy to stand, continue to stand. So could you please all show if you are in favour of that? Thank you. It's carried. The next item is the Medical Travel Transport Group. Could I have a nomination, please, Councillor Mumford? Thank you.
Second.
That's seconded by Councillor Grottick. All those in favour, please. Thank you. It's unanimous. The next one is the Cornwall Council Observer and the STP subcommittee, which is usually the lead member for adults. So, Councillor Marcus, are you happy to be nominated for that? Thank you. So, all those in favour, please. Thank you. Now, the Island Futures Board is next, and normally it's your chair of council. So has anybody got anything to say about that? Councillor Sims.
I have no issue with the chair of council being on this board, but I do think it would be useful to have either the vice chair of council or perhaps chair of planning or chair of place as a second choice if the chair of council's not available, because it meets fairly infrequently and it's quite important. So I think it's just having an oppo in place, which is probably some utility to that.
Thank you. Councillor Grosset.
I think you'll find it's in the terms of reference that the vice chair actually deputises for the chair. I would just say it might be possible to have a discussion around that, because it is, I have actually found it a little difficult actually taking the thread when deputising for the previous chairman. So there might be some merit, if there's space, to have two seats, but I think obviously that is a question for the board.
Yeah, and certainly the terms of reference, that's not included, but it's perfectly acceptable to have a deputy nominated and for them to attend for observation purposes.
Thank you. Okay, so are you happy that the chair of council continues to sit on that board, please?
Yeah, I'll nominate the chair.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Next item is the Smart Islands Partnership. Could I have a nomination, please? Councillor Marcus.
Lead member for place. No, lead member for Smart Islands.
Councillor
Seconded.
Guy. Thank you. Are there any other nominations, please, for Smart Islands? Councillor Sims.
I don't wish to nominate anybody else, but generally the lead member for place is also on the partnership. That's always been the case as far as I know, and it doesn't seem to be on here.
Yes.
Check the terms of reference. It may be observer status, but we can check that terms of reference, yeah.
Okay. Well, as long as there's, I mean, the vote isn't actually significant in that particular instance. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. The last item of the external appointments is the Cornwall and Isles of Sea Leadership Board, and I think that should incorporate the sponsor board as well. We've left that off, which is in the terms of reference, again, the chairman and the vice chairman on these two. Councillor Marcus.
Yeah, happy to nominate the chair and the vice chair.
Thank you. Councillor Guy, seconding. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. We've already had a comment on recommendation 2 from Councillor Williams. So is that a proposal from you to accept that? Thank you. Councillor Sims.
I just, this seems to be almost copy and pasting from last year. We haven't got no transport board here. I don't think the transport board was particularly functional when at last annual council. Should we have the transport board in this list?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So I take it that everybody who's been nominated under recommendation 1 is happy to serve. Yes, thank you. And we've had a proposer for recommendation 2. Is there a seconder for recommendation 2? Councillor Smith.
I'll second that, yeah.
Thank you. So all those in favour of those 2 recommendations? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, our next item on the agenda is planning application item 16 for Norrod and Tresco. I'll leave that in the hands of Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would normally have a PowerPoint with some images on, but unfortunately I've not managed to get it working today. So if you can bear with me. This is a planning application for the erection of a replacement 2-storey rear extension to the this detached holiday let dwelling. The proposed replacement will be larger in scale than the existing structure, but overall the design, scale and position are assessed as acceptable. Overall, on the basis of this assessment and subject to the conditions set out, it's recommended for approval, but members are asked to delegate the decision to the senior manager pending the submission of a preliminary ecological appraisal to establish whether or not the property is being used by bats or bat habitats. Subject to that, it's recommended for approval.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, so the protected species line, that refers to the protected, environmental assessment, was it? The PEA? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So you understand they've got scheduled to take place by the end of May.
Okay, thank you. Just also a question, I was looking through the application, some detail online, and with regard to the energy saving or renewable energy generation measures of this extension, were there any included in the application to your knowledge?
No, there were not.
Okay.
Can we ask for there to be some?
Yeah, bear with me. It would be reasonable to condition energy saving measures for extension.
I think, Chairman, what we need to look at in terms of these sorts of applications is how proportionate those kind of asks are, because this is an extension, it's not a new build. So if you look at our policies in both our local plan and the emerging local plan, it does tend to be, if you like, new buildings as opposed to necessarily extensions, because it might be that the extension actually isn't suitable to actually permit any form of renewable energy. So there's a practical issue as well as a proportionate issue to consider as well. So my view would be, and it is the recommendation of the officers, that we have set out conditions, but those conditions wouldn't include, again, because of the proportionality issues, a sustainable design measures including renewable energy generation.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
Yeah, well, that's a bit, it's frustrating rather than disappointing, and I look forward to the new local plan when this will be more embedded within design measures for extensions and for new builds.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that members approve the application in principle for the reasons set out in the report and subject to the conditions set out in the Appendix A, but delegate the issuing of the decision and any additional conditions to mitigate impacts upon protected species once further information is submitted to assess the impact upon protected species. Councillor Marcus.
I'll propose a recommendation.
Thank you. I have a seconder, please. Councillor Sims. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. So our next item 17 is the planning application for 2 Matthews Field, again in the hands of Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a planning application for the construction of a large timber shed in the private rear garden of this semi-detached dwelling. The shed is required for storage purposes in connection with the applicant's business of diving and as a boat tender store. The shed proposed is to measure 8 metres long along the boundary with Luenva, the adjacent property, by 3 metres wide and a roof height of 2.65 metres. It will be situated adjacent to the hedge, immediately adjacent to the neighbouring property. The current owners of this property have raised a strong objection that the proposed use in a position within 4 metres of their property could result in noise and disturbance, as well as affect light levels for the kitchen. Officers have concluded that the use of a domestic shed, conditioned as such, and not being used directly for commercial purposes, will not give rise to significant noise issues that would suggest their application should be refused. The height proposed would mean that it would be visible above the existing hedge by approximately 0.5 metre. officers have concluded that it would not be sufficiently harmful to refuse this application on that basis, and subject to the conditions set out is recommended for approval.
Councillor Sims.
I fear I should have declared an interest on this one because my sister lives next door, and so I'll nip out the room a minute.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
I'll just wait till Councillor Sims departs. Yeah, just the definition of domestic usage for the shed, in that if they can use it as a dive store, they're talking about air compressors. Air compressors are quite noisy. It's situated at the top of the hill overlooking the town. The noise is going to be quite pronounced, I think. So and given the representation we had, what measures can we put in place could be put in place to ensure that the neighbours and other people aren't unduly disturbed by that noise?
The applicants have applied for it as storage purposes, not using compressors to fill air tanks. The use of that kind of equipment would go beyond storage use. We've spoken to Environmental Health, who have spoken to the applicants, who have confirmed that it's not their intention to be filling air tanks in that building. They have a site elsewhere where they do that. It could be that we could condition that it's not used for that kind of equipment in that building. That it's not their intention, my understanding, and it is just storage. I don't know if Craig wants to add anything there.
No, Chairman, I was just going to draw members' attention to condition 6, which says the building hereby approved shall only be used for the purposes ancillary to the residential use. And it goes on to say, for no other purposes, including commercial uses. We could elaborate on that, but my view is actually that that's quite a strongly worded condition and would actually preclude the use of that building for commercial purposes, including air compression of cylinders.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was going to suggest that. I just wonder if Councillor Marcus would agree that it might be stronger, rather than to say to focus on the domestic usage, but to actually give a stronger commission saying that this permission precludes any commercial usage.
Already in condition 6, as Craig was saying.
Chairman, that's what the condition says. What we could do, we could elaborate, and we could actually make specific reference to compressors if members so wish.
Yeah.
So are you happy with that, Councillor Marcus?
Yeah, and just to clarify for the neighbours, in terms of noise, what's the recourse for neighbours or anyone else, if there is, even with domestic use, is there a recourse for them to?
There is environmental noise, statutory noise nuisances, so there are options through the council where that can be addressed. If a person is suggesting that the use actually is using a compressor, then that would be in breach of the condition, and we could serve a breach of condition notice on the use of that building.
So just to clarify, that would be use of a compressor for domestic or commercial purposes. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Marcus.
If that's the case, I'd propose the recommendation.
And seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is item 18, which is our pay policy statement, page 31.
Thank you, Chair. Members will see there's a recommendation at the beginning of the report, and I have nothing to add to the report.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Question to the Chief Executive, please. I noted on page 42, just around the pay multiple, 2718, this was 5.07. It's now gone up to 5.85. Can you explain the why this pay multiple has increased in the organisation, please?
I'm sorry, could you take me through where that is?
Sorry, page 42, the pay multiple. I note from previous, last year, the pay multiple was 5.07. It's now 5.85, suggesting that the gap between the highest and the lowest has sort of increased. So I just wondered if you could elaborate on that.
No, I'm afraid, Chair, I can't, but I can find that out and let the council know.
Thank you. Any other comment, please? So can we please have a proposer for the recommendation that members approve the pay policy statement? Councillor Grottick.
Yes, Chair, I propose that.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Watt. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. So item 19 on our agenda is the provisional outturn, financial outturn for 2018-2019 on page 55. Unfortunately, we were unable to have our 151 officer this evening, so our senior manager Craig has decided that he will handle all your awkward questions.
Thank you for that, Chairman. All I was going to say really is it's a relatively straightforward report. It's a short report, sets out the provisional outturn position for the council. What I would say is the annual statement of accounts, the work to close that is still ongoing. So this is very much a provisional figure. So it could be subject to some change, although it's anticipated it won't be significant variances. So you'll see from the revenue outturn, we're expecting an underspend of around £63,000. And also you'll see there as well as the capital outturn, which there will be more detail in the next quarter budget monitoring in the June full council meeting. So the recommendation is to note the provisional outturn for both revenue and capital, but also there's a second recommendation as well, and that's for members to approve the acceptance of a grant of just over £98,000, and that's from the Homes England's Community Housing Fund.
Thank you, Craig. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask a question in relation to recommendation 2? Is that grant a one-off, or are we likely to be able to apply for that on an annual basis?
It's a one-off grant.
Okay.
Councillor Marcus.
Looking at the capital programme, the outturn, the original capital outturn was 2.2 million, and now it's down £1 million. What is the reason for that huge shift?
Chairman, I haven't got that information to hand, so what I suggest is there will be a more detailed report in June, which will actually provide more detailed explanation.
Thank you. Councillor Sims.
Unfortunately, I haven't got my reading glasses, so I'm absolutely floundering here. Oh, we're not on that one. In that case, apparently I'm looking at the wrong page. Forget I said anything then.
Okay, so could we please have a proposer for the two recommendations together? Councillor Watt. Seconder, please. Councillor Marcus. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 20, the fees and charges update, which is also in the hands of Craig, I think. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So the report sets out some additional fees and charges which weren't included in the previous full council. You'll see that this relates to various services from adult social care, corporate properties, Porthmelon Enterprise Centre, infrastructure and elections. What I would say that unless specifically as stated in the report, it is proposed to increase fees and charges by the latest consumer price index, which currently is around 2.3%. You'll see from the report, though, that the exception is really in relation to the Porthmelon Enterprise Centre, and you'll see that some of those charges are going up fairly significantly, but that's because the recommendation is very much based on the fact about parity in terms of the cost of hiring rooms throughout our portfolio. So it's actually to align those fees and charges better, but also to put the commercial viability of the Enterprise Centre on a much firmer footing.
Thank you. Councillor Sims.
Well, I have had quite a strongly worded email regarding specifically the single desk space year hike of nearly 40%. And there's only one person who's happy to be identified on that basis. I did clarify that with him, who will no longer rent if it goes up. It's a big increase, nearly 38.89% here. And it seems a bit lacking business sense because there's no demand. At the moment, he's the only person doing it. And it's fine. I can completely agree. Achieve parity across the council base, but if you achieve parity to the point where you make it so there's no demand, it's rather foolish. You can put the fees and charges up, but if they're too expensive for people, then you make considerably less.
Councillor Smith.
Chairman, thank you. Several months ago, I asked for a paper on the Porthmelon Enterprise Centre, costs, profit, loss, business plan. We haven't seen that. So I'd actually propose to defer the particular item on the Porthmelon Enterprise Centre in favour of a full business plan, including key financial data, to come back to members by July full council. And at that point, I feel we can make an informed decision about the fees and charges for the centre, because at the moment, I don't think we can make an informed decision. And I concur with what Councillor Sims said around the unhappiness down with the fee payers at the centre.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus.
Yeah, I'd second that proposal.
Okay, so we have a proposal. So we'll take the recommendation that we accept the proposed fees and charges as set out, leaving out the Porthmelon Centre that will be a subject of a further report. Sorry.
Apologies, Chair, but I would just like to ask a question, if I may, before we take the vote.
Sorry.
There doesn't seem to be any reference to Carngwarville. So there used to be rooms for hire at Carngwarville, I believe.
Chairman, we have now relinquished the lease at Carngwarville, so it's no longer applicable. Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of Carn Thomas. No, Chairman, sorry. If you do look in the fees and charges reports, there are fees and charges to Carngwarville. We took those at the last meeting of full council. So if you look at the education rooms, for argument's sake, in hiring of rooms, that relates to rooms such as the Klondike. So it is actually included in the fees and charges, but they were approved at the previous meeting of full council.
Thank you. And if I could just quickly say, I commend the expansion of the services provided at Park House, which not only increases our revenue stream, but also gives much needed added help to people in the community, which is very welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford.
Yes, on the adult social care, I think there's just a little typing error.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah, per night. Good value for money. Yeah.
Sorry, Chairman, just to come back actually to Councillor Grottick's issue with Carngwarville, I have noticed actually in terms of the education rooms, there has been something actually has gone wrong in terms of the various typos. So the half day, the per day and per hour charges, whilst they're all right, they're just in the wrong order. So there needs to be a bit of reordering.
Thank you. Councillor Sims.
I'm glad that the Carngwarville charges are in it, because when I asked Julian about the fees and charges, he said it's to bring parity with Carngwarville, but he didn't know what the Carngwarville charges were because it wasn't in his remit. So it's good to have them there. But however, achieving parity with Carngwarville when regarding with the PEC, when you very little is like for like, again seems somewhat dubious.
Councillor Legg.
I was just wondering if we could have some narrative on the 72% increase of the sewer system per load. It's under miscellaneous on page 13. Yes, it is a small amount, but it is 72% is a large increase.
Sorry, Chairman, for clarity, the fees and charges we're looking at this evening's meeting because are the ones highlighted in yellow. The other fees and charges have already been set and approved by council. I should have made that clearer. Apologies for that.
Thank you. So can I please go back to the recommendation that members approve the proposed fees and charges as set out, except for the PEC, which will be subject of a further paper, hopefully in July, council. So could I've got a proposer and seconder for that. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. So the next item on the agenda is item 24, which is the community fund applications on page 59. It might be helpful for members to know that we only have £2,485, I think, left to allocate. And the applications that we have are in excess of that amount. So in your debating, you might like to bear that in mind. Councillor Mumford.
Yes. The transition study was deferred from last time, wasn't it, for more information? And the other two have come in since. So I feel that the transition study really should be the first one to consider. Because the other two would actually go to the following year. They applied for the other one. Do you get what I mean?
Councillor Grottick.
Yes, I have read this report carefully, and it appears to me that I've just suggest to you a possible fair way forward, which is there are other sources of community funding which could be approached. And there's the Richard Addison Trust in certain instances, there's the Edward MacDonald Trust, and there's other sources of funding that we could help possibly the applicants to consider. Therefore, to be fair, I would like to propose that we actually offer everyone on this in this paper 50% of what they asked for and work with all of them to see whether there are other funding streams that they could access. That seems to me the fairest way forward. I don't know whether anyone would like to second that. Otherwise, I think we could be here for a very long time.
Councillor Sims.
I'm not unhappy with that, but I would, rather than 50%, just do it pro rata, so we use it up. You know, if we have 65% of the funding is left, then we give them 65%. If you get so it's pro rata as opposed to 50%.
I'm leaving a little bit in the pot, if you like, for an urgent request for a sum of money later on in the year. Otherwise, we spent absolutely all of the allocation for the year and we've got absolutely nothing left. If we give 50% to each of these applicants, I think working it out earlier, I think we might have, I forget, I think it's about 400 left, which would leave us a little pot in the pot for emergency.
Councillor Guy.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I had a long, in-depth conversation with Andrew Coombs regarding this, and he specifically told me that if the full amount wasn't granted, the project wouldn't happen because it wouldn't be sufficient funds. So it is the full asking for that one.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
When I spoke a few meetings ago, the sort of application we got from Silly Seasiders was exactly what I had in mind, a new group looking to do a huge amount of good work, life-changing work. So I would propose that we support Silly Seasiders 100% in their application, supporting those with or affected by cancer.
Thank you. Yes, Stephen.
There's obviously a number of strands going on in this.
Yeah.
And I think that unless members do wish to do an overall limit as proposed by Councillor Crockett, but not seconded, it still may well be as well to keep that in mind, but to go through each of them one by one, because you may have greater enthusiasm for some of them than others.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford.
I know that this is not this council, but I think after we've decided on it, that we should look at how this is done, how people apply. Because I think, because we've had quite a lot of advertising over it, I think we're going to get a lot more people asking for numbers. I think at another meeting we should look at this somehow. But that doesn't, I would tend to give the money to Transition Silly because I feel that they belong to us first.
Well, I think we'll take them one at a time, but I'll just hear Councillor Marcus
I'd like
first.
to add a fourth recommendation that we review the process and look at funding rounds. So we have 2 funding rounds a year to minimise this
circus.
Continual, I don't know, yeah.
Okay.
Series.
Councillor Sims.
It's just like the Mole Maze, isn't it? We have 3 applications: cancer, air ambulance, and bees. And so on that basis, bees sorts of lose. But I think the air ambulance one is the least credible of the 3, simply on the basis they have enormous fundraising all over the place, and the other 2 are principally local. And so my priority would be for 1 and 2 as opposed to 3.
Thank you.
And I'm probably getting crucified for saying that.
Councillor Mumford. Right, Councillor Williams.
I would just throw another recommendation up in the air based on what's all been said, and I would suggest we suspend the community grant fund applications until we've got the review, which I've asked for previously, which Councillor Mumford, Councillor Marcus have mentioned.
Right.
Can I help?
Yes, Councillor, Chief Executive, thank you.
Not that important. I think my suggestion now would be that you invite, Chair, any proposal in relation to item 1.
Can we do that then, please? Item 1. Councillor Legg.
Just double checking that item 1 is what I think it is. I propose that we give £2,000 to Transition Silly. I propose recommendation 1.
Right. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Mumford. All those in favour, please. Five. Yeah. Any against? 1, 2, 3.
That's carried.
Thank you. That's carried then. Thank you.
Abstentions.
Sorry?
Move on.
I think somebody wanted to abstain.
Well, I'm presuming that those that haven't voted are abstentions, but yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we come on to recommendation 2, bearing in mind we only have £485 left in the pot. So do I have a proposal for item 2, please? Councillor Sims.
Well, I would recommend that the remainder, and to bearing in mind Councillor Woodwick said before, however, these ad hoc things haven't come up yet, I would propose that the remainder of the community fund is given to City Seasiders, because I think it's a very worthy cause.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Marcus, second that. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you.
We don't need to consider item 3.
And we're going to do a review process.
Well, no, we're not.
No.
Recommend.
Are there any other recommendations?
Okay. So item 3, we still need to take a vote
Chair.
on.
Sorry, can I just go back
Yes.
on item 2? Am
Yes.
I able to say that I'd be happy to give them the other 125 quid personally?
We'd be delighted.
Can I do that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, can anybody like to? Do we have to propose and second it, or you just leave it to me?
No.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, item 3, we haven't got any money left. What do you want me to do?
Move from the chair, that be rejected.
So we're moving from the chair that item be rejected at the present time. Councillor Grottick.
If I could just say, I sit on the Edward MacDonald Trust and I'm happy to bring it to the Trust for their consideration at the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grottick. Are you seconding that then?
Councillor Williams also sits as a trustee. I think it's something that we could carry forward without a formal recommendation, but if you wish to recommend that we do that, feel free.
Are you seconding the motion?
That it's rejected. Is there a seconder for the motion that item 3 is rejected?
Yes, indeed.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried.
Sorry, I thought you wanted to formalise the...
Further general motions.
Yes. So could I have further general motions? Councillor Marcus.
I recommend
review.
that we review the process to introduce funding rounds to clarify and focus the process.
Thank you. A seconder, please.
By November, please.
By November. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Right, thank you very much. That concludes the meeting at, sorry. Yes, we've done that, but well, we haven't voted on that. Yeah. So we're part 2 items are for information only. So we're closing the formal meeting at 7:55 and
Just concluding part 2.
yeah, but in order that the press.
Technically not concluding anything. So what, can I make a suggestion, Chair? Sorry, my understanding of the, is that we now, and you may wish, or Councillor Grottick may wish to propose this from the Chair, that under section 100A4 of Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of that act. So if somebody proposes that and then somebody seconds it.
Fine. Can I have a
Propose it.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you.